Thank you for tuning into the SeaBros Fishing Podcast. On this episode, we have two returning guests, Captains Rob Taylor and Seth Funt. If you haven't listened to our first episodes with these guys, Rob runs a charter fishing company out of Newport, Rhode Island called Newport Sportfishing Charters, and Seth mates for Rob throughout the season. He has a boat of his own, and he runs a successful bed and breakfast in Bristol, Rhode Island. We always look forward to seeing these guys. They're both passionate fishermen, hilarious, and love to nerd out on fishing theories. The coolest thing about hanging with Seth and Rob for this podcast was seeing the reconstructed tuna skull that they brought with them. So Seth's brother-in-law, Dacus Bones, creates unbelievable museum quality artwork from fish skulls and skeletons. And when the guys got out of the truck to come do the podcast here, they unveiled it. So it was a skull from a 118-inch bluefin that they caught together. Thing is insane. We stared at it for a while. It's pretty intricate and a cool piece, that's for sure. In this conversation with Rob and Seth, we went in a bunch of different directions, covering a ton of topics. We recap their 2023 tuna fishing season. We chat about rod blanks and tackle, discuss how to keep live bait in perfect condition, and discuss tactics for catching giant bluefin off the beaches of Rhode Island and in Cape Cod Bay. It's always a pleasure to sit down with a couple of fun, like-minded fishermen from our own neck of the woods, and we hope you enjoy this podcast as much as we did. Welcome to the SeaBros Fishing Podcast, where we follow 3 words of wisdom. You can't catch them if you don't have a hook in the water. Always trust your instincts. And the last, you'll just have to keep listening. Stay tight.
Hook around. Yep, that's the one. That's the real one. Oh. Get up there, man. All right, get down low. All right, that real is it. Double up. We doubled up. Alright. Am I coming off or what? Get that down. Don't get on that rock right here.
Dude, that is fucking sick.
It's the only one in the world.
That's amazing, dude.
Right? It's the only one on the planet Earth. Yeah, when we started doing this.
Yes. Let's get this way. Oh, you guys know the drill. We roll right off the rip.
So who's involved with this magnificent production?
So my brother-in-law Dave, when we were all growing up kind of fishing together, this is back like 15 years ago. He was a taxidermy guy. And so he had the chemistry down to make the bones cool. And we started doing it, and he started just doing the jaws so we could figure out what the right hooks were for different species. We would get this like VMC deal, and we would get like hundreds of different shapes of hooks, and we would figure out which way they would swing into the jaw latches the best. And then he just kept going with it and going deeper down into a rabbit hole with it. And to my knowledge, like, I don't really know anybody else that does it, but there's certainly nobody that does it like he does it. I mean that's like, museum quality.
Yeah,
totally.
That's sweet.
Could be in the Smithsonian.
Definitely. I mean, in fact, if you go to the Smithsonian and you see their fish heads, they're all like yellow.
Yeah.
Because they can't get all the oil out. So that's the part that makes it really challenging with like he's got his own proprietary way that he does this, but this thing breaks down into literally hundreds of bones.
Oh yeah, I've tried it. I basically just gave up.
Yeah, it gets frustrating.
Yeah.
Because
the gill plate alone is a disaster. And the gill plate is like
paper thin,
and there's actually way more bones than you realize.
Yeah. Paper thin.
There's some dudes that do it, but it's like when they reassemble it, it's never like anatomically correct.
Yeah.
But because all this stuff is kind of like free floating.
Yeah, it's just one little piece of wire.
Yeah, but if you look at the eye's in the shape of like a mushroom. And I was doing a seminar, and we were looking at like a 100-pound yellowfin and a 100-pound swordfish, and the eye structure looks almost identical. Yeah, it would suggest that it's like a nighttime feeder, you know, because swordfish are, and everyone's like drawn to how big their eye is, but the yellowfin is like, it's the same eyeball. You know, they're both like this big egg, and a lot of it's just covered up.
That's so sick.
But the bluefin, totally different than any other species.
Yeah, eyeballs.
Yeah. So anyway,
Unique.
Robbie, me, Lou, Ralph, Bo, we caught this fish up on the Cape.
We're good.
And as soon as we boated the fish, I remember thinking to myself, like, I know what's going to happen to this head, and no one else knows what's going to happen to this head.
Yeah.
And, you know, Robbie gets back there after we put the thing, and I slowly start telling him, I'm like, dude, listen, here's what we're going to do. And immediately Robbie's just like, we're doing it. But the process to like get the gill pulled back and to make that cut where it needed to get cut so we didn't damage anything. And then it was a process of like getting it back to Florida, and then me hounding Dave, because it's 3 years.
Yeah.
Since I
Oh,
gave-
really?
it's
Okay.
been
I
3
thought
years.
this was like your tournament fish.
No,
Okay.
no. This is the asshole fish where I was screaming at Lou to stick his gloves in the reel because I was tired of it. She had no more drag, and I was like, dude, you got to stick, like, put your hands in there. And I was like, no, when it comes around, when the line comes back at the boat, if any line comes off the reel, you're fired. And he's like sitting there like this, he's got his head back. Ralph's like, and we had just started really testing those dataless blanks. So Ralph is in the corner, and I hear all these alarms going off, and it's like his heart monitor thing because he's so stressed out because we're bending the. I mean, I have, you know, the Tiagra's at full. There's nothing left. So the side plate, everything, it's as high as it'll go, and it's just Lou like this, and the thing's like in a U. But it would get to the point where you had to add that little bit because you would notice like it would go down a little bit more, and then it would actually pull up. And we had the fish at 80 feet. You know how it is sometimes, 80 feet. And it's like an hour and 10 minutes has gone by and he's still at 80 feet. And I was like, all right. And like, I'm not going to drive away. It was too rough to like try to plane him up or do anything. So I'm just like, Lou, stick your hands in there. Just jam him in there.
I got this video of Lou, and he's like holding the reel, and he's like, and he wasn't seasick, but he didn't want to be the one to bust it off.
Had a visceral reaction.
Dude, we're like 90 minutes in, you know, and like most of those fish, like right at 90 minutes, you know, it's like close the gap here.
Yeah.
And at 90 minutes, Rob's got it up on the surface, and he's doing his normal thing. Oh, crank on, and we're all just jacked up. And then this thing just sees the boat, comes up on the surface, do. Gone.
Yep.
It was the meanest. That was the meanest one I've ever seen.
We had one on stand up in PEI on one of those Penn VIS X50s that we had at like, we're only fishing like 90 feet of water, but we had them from like the mud to 70 feet for 2 hours. For 2 fucking hours. Full drag. The kid who's fighting him, Timmy, was like in so much pain that it was like almost looked like he was sweating blood. You know what I mean? And then finally it was just at the point where I'm like, we can swap anglers if you want. Like, that was my morale boost. He's like, fuck that. Fuck that shit. And then he actually got him up like 10 minutes after. Like, it's all you need. Just a little boost.
Yeah.
You know?
We're going to take it away from you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Can I have you guys scooch more this way? Just
face the mics a little bit
on
more.
camera.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And that distance on the mic should be pretty good. Should be good.
Yeah. So you guys had a wicked season. You guys had a sick season. I saw some awesome videos, specifically the bluefin eating the bluefish.
We had a lot
pretty
of
wild.
sick bluefish eats.
Yeah.
Dude.
Some of those
Amazing footage.
We'll put a bite video.
Yeah, I'll try to
your-
grab that clip
I
for you
can
for
send
the
it to
you. In your little
reel, for the
teaser.
intro.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of that stuff is insane. So why don't you guys like chat about that a little bit? What that was like last year?
I mean, they were just angry bluefish eaters from like as soon as they showed up till right when they left. I mean, and they were pounding them. I think almost 99% of the bites were on the surface.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think I had any, like, I had one down rod bite, and it was in December when I came up here.
Yeah.
And that was my only down rod bite of the season.
Welcome
it
to
was-
the club.
It was lovely to see you up here in December. Bro.
Yeah.
I have a sick video. I was with Weber, and I have a sick video. You guys, I think you ended up getting a fish like after we went home, but completely fucking surrounded by smashing fish.
Oh, dude, I pulled right in and I was like, oh, I think that's Weber's new boat. And then I'm like sitting there and all those fish, you'll never fucking believe what happened. So we pulled into those fish. Boom. I throw a mackerel out onto the back of a fish. The thing goes down. We're tight. I'm like, here we go. Lock it up. Poor beagle. I'm like, fuck. So they were still up, and didn't they feel like they stayed up forever?
Forever.
Yeah.
So I grabbed the other rod, another mackerel. I'm like, phew. Another one like blows up right in the wake of it. Bob her down. Here we go. Poor beagle.
What?
Dude, I only had 2 rods rigged up for that day, so I'm sitting there and I'm like, shit. So my buddy Tyler, who he was with me, and I was like sitting there, and he's like, he's asking me, what do we do? What do we do? And I'm sitting there, and I just remember being like, don't talk to me. I can't. I'm trying not to look. And
Your hands are cramping.
and they're so close to you, you can
yeah.
hear them still. And I'm like, oh, mother, shit. I'm like trying not to fuck the cramp.
You got
up.
the shakes.
I'm like, and then like I'm ready. I get the mackerel, and then it's just, and they were gone. So then we ended up just sitting there and floating it out, and then we ended up getting tight like a half hour or 45 minutes later.
That's sick. Yeah, it was wild
I love
watching
that
them.
pressure.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the only down rod bite, we got one in the dark, like a couple the opening day or whatever the day before.
Yeah.
We had a good down rod bite in the dark the second day. It's so weird how they fight so different when you hook them at night. Well, at night.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
the moon too.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a moonfish, my buddy Dave, and this thing was like relentless. It had extra. It was like it was a kryptonite fish.
Yeah.
Just can't.
I feel like
move
it's like one of two ways at night.
Yeah.
They're like disasters or they're just easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe they're a little calmer and a little
Yeah.
more. Not so much crazy Ivan, just pull full.
herring drunk still from eating all the
Yeah.
mackerels.
Herring drunk. It's a good way to put it.
This season was crazy though, in the sense that like once we were like committed to like bluefish, that's it.
Yeah.
Then that opened up a whole rabbit hole of like
I mean, even in the tournament when we came up here to fish, we brought all of the bluefish.
60 bluefish.
Jesus.
Big bluefish hotel.
Oh yeah, we had these videos of like tanks hanging off the side of the boat, and then we got there and there's more tanks, and there was so many tanks we couldn't even walk around the boat.
Of course, we lost to a Rhode Island fish.
There's some big corkers down there this
Oh
year.
yeah. But when we looked at it, it was like one of those things where the weather appeared to be very bad in the forecast. And I was like, I don't want to lose during the tournament a couple days to guys fishing up here if I can't get out.
Yeah.
Then I had to make a judgment call on when to go. So I just went full send. I was like, I'll go back to my old stomping grounds. Let's go. So we went up there. And then, of course, like by the time we got there, like the forecast had improved and those guys were actually able to get out.
That was literally like a last minute.
Oh, really?
We had no plans to go up to the Cape, and then like 30 minutes before we were supposed to meet down at the boat, Robbie's like, we're going. No questions asked. We just loaded and went.
Yeah.
What's that run for you from home base?
4 hours. Took me four.
It's not too bad.
Depends. As long as you hit the canal right. I hit it wrong, so it took a little longer.
No, but the whole time, remember, I'm standing in the back in slicks, and I'm like staring at the fish. I'm like, they don't look happy. Give me more water.
And he could not sit still, so he would literally monitor the bluefish. Like he'd come up and sit for a little bit, and he'd go back and like check the water flow. I'm pretty sure he had
Checking the
pH meter in there.
Well, he's got the, we have the one hooker pump that runs the system, but the way we had it, we had like 100 and a 60. Did we have more than that?
Oh yeah, we had, and then whatever that big one, round one is.
200. So we had all of them just decked out.
Were you going like 6
Yeah.
knots?
How fast was your vessel?
No.
No, I was still going like 13, 14.
Yeah.
Really?
But I was just, from just being like a bait junkie, I know that like you could go from Newport water and then we start to get into the canal and all of a sudden the chemistry changes and they could freak out. The water temperature could change, whatever.
Yeah.
And they just weren't happy. But we were dosing them with he's got a wash down. Like that's like your hydro gutting
Yeah.
off. It's
Yeah.
hooked up to the motor.
Yeah.
So at full throttle, this thing could put out like, a building fire.
Yeah, we had that
And
before Tuna too.
I'm like
same thing.
skimming the surface with like
Creating oxygen.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mad
Just
scientist.
the whole ride the whole ride down there, I was just like, I'm wet. I can't like relax because I know that if we have bluefish up there, it's gonna be.
Yeah, totally.
And they were nice sized bluefish because then when we ended up getting bluefish, we made a run across the bay. We ended up going to the backside and finding bluefish there, and they were all
huge
hammers.
Yep, and we caught fish on it, but I remember they were big.
Yeah.
Confidence thing, When you're in a tournament,
those little bluefish are like gummy bears.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we were catching them in the upper bay for like days, and I had Robbie's like calling friends, like, can I put a bait tank on your mooring ball?
Oh yeah.
And we had mooring balls with bait tanks scattered out throughout the bay. And so by day we're charter fishing, and by night, like right before sunset, we're like catching as many bluefish as we could, penning them up and not touching them till right before we leave.
Yeah.
And then that whole day was like 24 hours of like shuffling baits and moving baits around. And
yeah. You guys, the tournament fishing in the bay, was it all charters or was it just like you guys?
Just us.
Just you guys?
Just us. Yeah. It was supposed to be us and the guys from Jigging World, so
gotcha.
Kind of be on our team. But they actually came down with COVID right before.
Oh, bummer.
So he wasn't able to make it.
That sucks.
So, but we had a good showing. I mean, we got fish all the days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
we were following along with you guys. We were rooting for you.
But
we were down there a few days. I was down there 4 or 5 days on the little boat. We had 3, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the weather was almost too perfect.
Yeah, and then the water temp went up like 8 or 9 degrees in 24 hours, and it kind of just like thinned everything out in there for a bit.
It was crazy. 'Cause, I mean, it was so calm.
Yeah.
That first day.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear a crazy story? We hyped up this whole like, well, if we're gonna be on a boat rotting all day, we might as well make this fun. So we brought this like flat top grill.
I saw videos of this.
And listen to this. So the way that whole thing went down was we get out there and it's like time for the big show, right? Yeah. So we got eggs, bacon, all this stuff, and we busted out and we forgot the piece that connects the grill to
we didn't forget it. We found it later.
Yeah, but we couldn't find the valve for the propane. So like we're rummaging through like all the parts on the boat trying to figure out, and I'm like, this isn't gonna work. So we get on the radio and somebody's like, yeah, we got an extra valve. And we end up leaving the spot where we were fishing to go there to get the valve.
And I scanned some bait and a fish on the way.
So we got the valve and we went back to that spot and we got tight.
That's
no
sick.
way.
Yeah, so that fish was the whole like, the first half of the morning we were all like, this is the worst ever. Because nothing we have on this boat can be eaten the way it is. We have to cook everything. So we're screwed. And everyone's looking at me like, dude, you fucked up. and then Robbie called his buddy, and that was like, all of a sudden everything changed.
That's awesome.
It's amazing the morale difference when something like that happens.
Dude, we had an experience in Canada. We were fishing off like the northeast tip of the island, just doing drifts and mackerels like we do here. And then all the fish showed up to our west, which Jamie's gonna listen to this. He's like, no, it's to the south because it's so fucked up there because how sharp the island is. I can never tell like exactly what direction we're going, but I think it was west. So they showed up to the west. It's lunchtime. Ben Bruce, Jamie's son, is like, I got a brand new barbecue. We'll throw the barbecue together on the way and grill and then set up our drift. So he's like, it's down the V berth. We get underway. It's still in the box. I pull the box out onto the table, the dining table there in the wheelhouse, and it's like parts A through like Z10.
Oh, no.
IKEA, like every fucking little screw. I'm like, dude, we're not gonna be eating till like dinner time. He's like, we'll figure it out. And long story short, we get to where we're gonna set up our drift, get on the first drift, school pops up around us. It's like that scene from Jaws when Chief's like just finishing tying the knot. He's like, hey, I got it. And it's exactly what happened. I'm like, we're ready, boys. I think we like just were putting like the fucking heat to it. And then the far floater gets smoked. And then we didn't end up eating till like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. But it's funny shit.
What a game changer that thing is. I think there was a few trips that we did this year where people were coming on the boat just to have a boat ride and cook.
Dude, yeah, it's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, for $100
break it up for giant tuna fishing is not easy sometimes. Break it up in the middle of the day.
Morale
food.
booster.
Oh, it's awesome.
And I'm used to it now because before I was the type of person that would go out and fish and be like, a quarter.
He doesn't eat.
A quarter bottle of water is
I'm
all
the
I
same,
need.
dude.
Yeah. It's like I don't eat all day, and I'm just like,
Once one's dead, though, I eat.
yep.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Once
it's
one's
the-
tail
I've
wrap.
given him like Reubens with
Yeah.
mustard, and it's all in his beard. It's the best.
The breakfast sandwiches were.
That's so funny.
What's your go-to boat food? Like if you had hot boat food choice, what would it be?
We went nuts on that trip. We were doing steak and cheese, pastrami, egg
Dude,
sandwiches.
sausages were good. Like
Yeah.
the venison sausages,
Yeah, those were
Yeah.
good.
peppers and onions, those were good.
I could go breakfast like eggs,
Yeah.
bacon, breakfast sangies on a flat top.
The Dennisons made some good sandwiches.
Hot pastrami on rye, I think.
That was pretty good.
Hot pastrami is
Yeah.
pretty damn good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So how many hours of the day are you guys spending on catching bluefish for charters?
Days.
Like are you doing like back to back to back giant tuna fishing? Or
Yeah,
are
if I
you
can.
kind of-
Yeah,
okay.
as long as the weather, especially
He would. Yeah, I mean
But the key is to stockpile too. So like ahead of time, like any free moment you have where you can go out and get bluefish. I mean, he was always on the bluefish. So if I was doing something, he was catching them.
Yeah.
And if not, and then a lot of times too, it's sometimes after we get a fish, when we drop them off on the way back in, be like, you want to go catch some stripers and some bluefish, and then add some more in.
Right.
Yeah.
it was constant.
Yep. Yeah, because we didn't have pogies around in like Newport
Not
as we
reliable.
had in years past. So it was definitely way bluefish focused.
Our logistics to get bait for going down there was hard. Well, yeah, it was hard this year having to go into Plymouth at fucking
Oh yeah,
3 o'clock
Yeah,
in the
because we were
morning.
coming out, so like that was
Yeah.
the one advantage. Is like, all right, I cast out the pogies, and then we were gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it got busy in there, guys getting bait.
God, it was
Like,
nuts in there a few days.
Yeah.
I was going like this, everyone's spotlights on me. I'm like, Jesus.
I know. We had one real foggy day in there too. That was brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to
The
watch out.
charter's always looking at you cross-eyed like,
Yeah.
You get
Or they're
bracket
asking
or
you
something?
47,000 questions while you're trying not to kill people.
Yeah.
It was nice to have that like one less thing to worry about, but that was definitely like a confidence booster to just have our own tanks.
I mean, that was the thing
Yeah.
too. Even for the tournament, bringing the chemtainer was like a good move. That he was like, "Dude, we got to bring the chemtainer because we would keep it. We stayed on a mooring, and we could, after offloading fish coming back, cast net pogies on the way in. I would see them, I'd find them, I'd throw the net, get them, and then put them in there. So they were already ready to go. So most of the time in the morning, we didn't even bother. For the
we were
tournament,
loading bait and going.
It's awesome.
And picking out what we wanted for the day. So like, 5, 6 small ones, couple big ones, put plenty of pogies.
Yeah.
And we had enough water and space. That was definitely the most water and bait that I've ever seen on any fishing boat I've ever been on.
she handles the weight, no problem.
That's something to be said too, because those Florida boats put some fucking water weight on there.
We had,
Oh, big time.
We had a couple 100 gallons.
But that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Knowing like we could black this boat out with as many baits as we need for the next 4 or 5 days.
yeah.
But that's just not in the mentality of a lot of people. But it was like Robbie and I were like pushing each other on the bait. It'd be like the sun would be setting and I'm like exhausted. He's like, "How many did you get?" I'm like, "Oh man, I got a dozen," or whatever. But it was pretty rad because where he keeps his boat, it's at Newport. So you're like right at the mouth. So you were picking at them right there.
Yeah.
And then the fish, for whatever reason this year, they were like in the upper bay, which is where I am. So it was perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was perfect. We had the upper bay covered and the lower bay covered, and you have the whole Narragansett Bay, and we're just like pounding it.
That's sweet.
Any tricks on catching them so that you're not like beating the crap out of them?
I'm a single hook guy,
Yeah.
tube and worm, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm not inline singles on your swimming plugs.
Yeah. I was using these like Rapala X wraps,
Yep.
and there was like I did a picture of it. You could find it. Looks just like what they were eating. But I would, like you said,
Yeah.
strip the hooks off and just do one single tiny little inline circle hook.
Yeah.
And I would have 2 tanks on the boat. One tank would be the one you'd catch the fish, and you'd grab the leader and bring him up over the tank, put him in the water, put the D-hooker in his mouth, and pop. And if he went into the tank perfect, he stayed in that tank. But if he flopped on the deck, he went into another tank. So we were segregating like the baits that were potentially harmed and the ones that were perfect.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Florida style bait
Yeah.
fishing. Very,
Attention to detail.
yeah.
You were doing that.
No touchy.
Pokies too.
Yeah.
Which was huge. And then back at the dock, we had chemtainers, we had cages, and we experiment. It was crazy this year. We experimented with like a lot of different ways to keep bait long periods of time. And I definitely think we found a few like little pearls with what works better,
Right.
you know?
What were some of the pearls, if you're willing to
Color of the tank.
color the tank?
Yep. How much exact water, how many is the correct.
Keep it under a dock in shade versus out in the open.
Oh, that definitely makes a difference. Yeah.
Like some of the cage was okay, but it depended on a certain size because if they get too small and their noses get caught in the mesh of the cage, you know, and the cage is long. I mean, it's like from here to that paddle,
Yeah.
probably like 4 feet wide, and it's probably another 5 foot deep. So
Probably
What,
600 gallons in that.
You figure anything out in regards to like keeping a rash off of them? Keeping them from going red fin and all
gets-
that?
the less you can touch them, you know.
Yeah.
Don't touch them.
Yeah. By rubber nets when you're getting them out, transferring them from tank to tank, and then like trying not, if you're gonna want to keep some for long term, it's like the ones that you just get for bait, let them just stay in the tank and then try to fish off ones that have been in the tank older, because the longer in the tank, sometimes they get red, but then they'll get out of red. You know, if they live in there and they get used to it.
Cured baits.
I mean, I couldn't believe it in December when I came back and I was, you know, doing my last couple tog trips. And I was like, I got to get the bait tanks out. When I picked one up, the big long cage, there was one small bluefish that had been in there from
And you can't catch him.
October, you know, and he looked fine.
It's awesome. We've fished them so many times, so many different days. We've had like hook holes and bridle holes re-heal perfectly in them. And it's pretty wild how resilient
They are pretty tough.
Yeah.
The chem tanks were definitely a game changer because they'll swim around in a circle and they won't really touch it.
Yeah.
Or in the cage, they're trying to get out.
Yeah, we swapped to a chemtainer this year. It was a game changer.
We got the new one that's coming out. That's
So there's a company.
massive.
I think I've seen a few videos on this guy.
Yeah, it was that we worked like tirelessly on coaching this dude through like we want this size and this height and this way to lock it and everything, and it's going to be like the perfect bait. You know, they're not cheap, but you know, for what we do, I think it's
Buy once, cry once type of thing.
yeah.
Kind of, and
Yeah.
it's not even that bad because I mean it's not like chemtainers are inexpensive either.
Yeah.
And it has like dimples already set up to like pre-piloted holes so you can drill through. So you know, with a bit you can make the holes as big or as small as you want.
Yeah.
I mean, like heavy duty latches, the ability to lift the thing, and then it also can come apart. So if you wanted to break it down to store it, the way that it's assembled, you can just unbolt it. And
Yeah, that's one that has a little like they have flanges on the sides, right? Bolts. Yeah, I've seen those. Those look cool.
Yep.
Not cheap, but it's a necessary tool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if you need
nothing's
it to,
cheap with fishing.
so.
But
But
we
if you
had-
need a playpen, you can stick children in it. They can't get away.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how'd you guys make out in the tourneys this year?
Good. I mean, good. You know, as far as that bluefin tournament, I mean, we lost by, 7 pounds. And the two fish that were ahead of us were people I know, so it doesn't hurt so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gib and Brad kicking us from second to third. And, you know, it's a tight margin, 7 pounds. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, we were butthurt because it was like two different scales. To which we were like,
yeah, that's a little weird.
whatever, it is what it is. You know, it was funny. I was about ready to jump out of my boots, and Robbie puts me right back on earth. He's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it was a great time.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I'm like, nah, but I want to win, dude. You put this much effort into it. And he's like, nah, man, who cares?
Putting 100.
At least the guys who won are friends of ours, so what do we care?
Yeah.
Good for them.
Look, at any time you can go in a tournament and place top 3, put a 113-inch fish across
Totally.
the deck.
That's a jumbo.
And the fact that we made a plan and we stuck to it. I mean, we did lose to Rhode Island fish, but we still came up to the Cape, and I was like, I know I want to be here. We got to do it this way.
Yeah.
And then we just stuck to our guns, and it did pan out. So
Yeah, it was great.
What are the differences of fishing with bluefish and pogies between Rhode Island and up here?
I don't know.
Are you
if
guys
there's
doing
that much
anything different?
I like huge hooks. I mean, that's the only difference is I'm a 12-0, 16-0. You know,
You're a big hook guy.
big hook guy.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I use 12-0s on pogies. I mean,
That's a big hook.
it looks weird at first, but look at when you put them in the water, the hook just lays on its back. It's heavy. It keeps him from like being dumb, and you know he swims a little slower because he's
Yeah.
dragging around this big hook.
That makes sense.
Yep. And look at it goes around like this.
Yeah. And here we are fishing.
I know. Yeah.
I was using a 12 on the mackerel in December because that's all I had.
Yeah. They were fishing 200 blue and 9.0 super mutus in December.
Yeah, that was nice actually. You didn't have to go shy. You had to go
Yeah.
nice and heavy.
Yeah. I feel like the game changes a lot though when you're sitting still on anchor, and it's not just like trying to fool line shy fish. It's also getting your bait to present right when the
Yeah.
current's pulling on it differently.
I will say
You know?
this tidbit, I guess, is the only thing that's different is like, you know, because in Rhode Island and even fishing, you know, whether it up here where we fish, we're drifting more, and the speed of the drift will change how I rig the bluefish. So,
Yeah.
you know, slow speed drift, straight back hook, nothing fancy. But as soon as, you know, we're picking up and we're going over a knot, you gotta eyeball bridle.
Yeah.
You know, because at least he's pulling. If he's getting pulled, it'll keep him alive longer. Because, I mean, if anyone's ever hooked a bluefish in the back with a fast drift, all of a sudden you're like, man, that balloon's look like it's dragging a little bit. You reel him in, the bluefish is dead. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that one video that you saw that where the fish comes up and misses it and then comes back and he creams it. That bluefish was bridled because that was a quick drift that day.
How heavy of a bridle are you using?
I just use like standard wax.
Like 30-pound wax line, 40 pounds, 60 pounds?
Yeah.
60 pounds.
That's the only thing that I'm always, you know, we don't fish bluefish all that often, but enough bridle that they can survive that sort of attack.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't really damage them that much. If you poke enough, you don't really want to poke through the eyeballs. You want to poke, like, get the needle to the point where it's like above one eyeball, sink it in, and then kind of there's a little cartilage spot. You don't want to puncture that either. And then kind of come up and around.
Like your needle kind of comes down, then like follows up the base of the
Those little
skull
curved
almost,
needles
and
are
out.
nice. I don't know if you've tried those.
They are.
But yeah.
The other thing I've seen that I haven't tried yet is they got like a zip tie one that has
Yeah.
like a barb on it.
They
and
work
you
pretty
push
well.
it through. And then sometimes I will rig it just below the head in the flesh if I, you know.
One thing I want to try too, I forget the name of them, but they use them for live trolling skipjacks and all
looks
that.
like a little dart.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
little dart thing through the top jaw.
They're expensive.
Yeah, they are.
I was down, it's funny, like coming back and forth between here and Florida, and I'm always like, walking through the tackle shop. What's new? And they had a little set of those dart heads in stainless, and I want to say the pack of like 50 was expensive,
Yeah.
very expensive.
Wonder if you could even just do it with a button. Just take an old like big freaking pants button and have your floss through there, and then just run your needle up through.
I don't think we need to.
know.
Maybe like a tuna or something.
I know.
Right.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
The eye bridle's easy enough.
Yeah.
there's been like a paradigm shift in our industry has definitely been this company Hooker Pumps that's making these like high volume pumps.
Yeah.
So now making these tuna tubes, I even thought about bringing a set back
No,
for
I
us
think
this
that
year
would be cool.
to have like a 6 rack of tuna where we could utilize a lot less deck space and have 6 baits sitting in tubes, and you can control the valve of water,
Yeah.
for each tube. Just to take up less space on the boat and be able to like divert the water just to the tubes. But anyway,
Go back up on your drift. It's just so much.
Oh
easier.
yeah. Just
pull
to
them
throw
out
them
and
in.
drop them right in
That alone would be awesome.
Friend of ours was using the R&R bucket or even the hooker bucket, I can't remember, for mackerels going back up and down on drift. He said it was all right.
it's perfect for like smaller baits.
Yeah.
But the thing about like some of the baits, we're fishing is like
Big.
the Northeast baits, they just require a lot of fresh water.
Yeah.
So that bucket is like self-contained. So you scoop water, and then there's like the little tubes inside the bucket.
It's just flow. There's no.
No, it
Yeah.
flows within the bucket.
Yeah.
It's not introducing new water.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Just recirculating.
Yeah, it's just recirculating the water. So
Have you tried them at all with like bluefish or pogies yet?
I think
Tested.
the 2-tank system was pretty nice because we usually fish 2 rods.
Yeah, so it's just.
Oh yes, you
One
can-
in one,
okay.
one in
Makes
the other.
sense. Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that's made it handier is having like those slides, for balloons.
Yeah.
Because you don't have so much line on the deck.
Yeah.
You know, because I used to tie my balloons on and it was fixed. So it would be like, I'd reel it up to him, like, coiled up. Don't step on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those little silicone sliders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you like those?
They've actually worked
Yeah,
out
they've worked
fairly
really
well.
well.
I
Okay.
like being able to at least reel it to the swivel, and I don't have so much line out when
Yeah.
I'm like repositioning.
Yeah.
So it does make it, because with bluefish, you gotta, like I always would, either if I didn't have the slide, because you have the slide, then you have a rubber band above it as a stopper.
Right.
But it's like you got to use a heavy duty rubber band, because bluefish, if you set him at 30 feet or whatever, let's say, and then he just decides he wants to freaking go flying off. And
Breaks
you
it
know,
big.
you just see the balloon go,
Yeah.
and you're like, how many feet are we at now?
Yeah.
Yeah. We used to use a piece of chafe tube, 2 sizes bigger above the swivel. And then we go 64 onto that, and then a 32 to the balloon for our smaller baits, and then have the stopper above it.
Yeah, that actually is the same thing.
It's nice. And it clean, like when we get bad mung too, it gets all the mung right to the swivel, paper towel, it's all gone. You're not spending, 30 to 60 seconds trying to clean everything all the time.
So as far as
sweet.
like running your baits, you're really not doing much other than the speed of your drift for a difference of like how you're hooking them and the depths and all that stuff.
You notice when you're hooking them through the nose, I mean, bluefish suck pogies too, but do your balloons stay pretty consistent, or are they overlapping as much when you have them through the nose?
Most of the time, they're pretty consistent, and I fish one super, super close to the boat and one super, super far, so that they can't get into too much trouble.
Yeah.
But when we would do like a fresh drift or something with fresh baits, you would inevitably be just walking around.
Oh
the
yeah,
boat with them.
on the days where there's like no drift, or if I decide sometimes I just put the spot lock down anyway.
Yeah.
These days, because even that flat calm day when we got the bite, I put the spot lock down because I think the fish like it.
I do too.
They
Works sick.
So
They
I was
come
like,
to it.
I didn't need this. I mean, we were drifting at 0.000 knots, and I'm like, I'm just gonna put this thing down.
Dude, the thing's a game changer.
Definitely.
Game changer. Yeah. I think it sounds like a whale.
Whatever it is,
RPMs
I
are
know.
going
You
up and
had a
down.
whale basically mate with you.
2 whales.
Yeah.
Had 2 mating encounters, one in the dark, which
Mating
I've
encounters.
never seen before.
That's the name of this podcast episode, Mating Encounters.
Mating encounters. I like that. Yep.
But they do like those trolling motors. I mean, even with the small fish, when we had that sick little vertical jig bite that was south of us,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
another good topic.
it was like I'd put that thing down after we'd hook one, and the next thing I know, you'd notice like while you're working one fish up, like a bunch of them would just be flashing under the boat now, and I can see them, and I'm like, oh man.
That's sick.
What rods do you guys fish?
Real easy. The Trident.
Tried at 8130s.
8130 rods.
Yeah.
How do you like them?
We love them. We haven't had an issue with them.
We're
We've used
big.
them for years.
We're big backbone guys. Like those. Like I understand the whippy rods and all that, and they serve their purpose on some boats, I feel.
But there's a point of two whippiness. It has to be able to
a
keep
fish like that. I don't want to be dealing with for
Right.
fucking hours and hours.
I want
and
it to
hours.
flex, but it has to have a point where
Yeah.
it shuts down and it starts to do the lifting part for you.
Yes.
We definitely noticed over the last 2 seasons that rod, that dataless rod by Jigging World, has made like
Yeah.
we're able to fish lighter leaders and not chafe them off.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the soft type makes a big difference.
And it keeps fish pinned so that it has the flex to keep it pinned. So when he goes up, the rod still has the give to go up and down. If he comes up, it's not unloading too quickly. But there has to be a point where that thing says, all right, fuck you. You're coming up now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think there's a lot of companies that try to like replicate it, and there's definitely only a few that make good rods. Like they obviously make a great blank.
there was a few times like Robbie and I were shooting some stuff for Humminbird, and it was just me and him on the boat. And it sounded cool in theory, but then we actually got into it. We put the bait out and like boom, we got tight. And Robbie's looking at me, he's like, "You ready?" And I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to do this by myself
That was
today."
a shit show though, because we were fighting the fish and we were actually filming for like Humminbird. They wanted to showcase the trolling motor, and of course, of all things to happen, I actually needed to use the trolling motor catch this fish because
We lost the
my
steering.
rudder
No
the
way.
keyway broke, so I could only turn to starboard. I couldn't turn to port. So now I'm like, what do we do? And I had to put the trolling motor down. So, when the fish would do something crazy and I could go to the starboard. But then when I needed to go to port, I had to use the trolling motor to push the boat to port. And that's how we were able to turn. I mean, the end game got a little ugly because, I remember you were looking at me like this. You're like, what are we doing? I'm like, because the rod's in the starboard corner, and the fish is on the port side, and the line is going directly over the back, over the transom.
The
but
best.
I can see the fish; he's already tired and like this. And I'm like, screw it. So I just walk over to the line, I grab it with my hand, I start pulling the fish towards me, like got the harpoon, and I'm sticking them right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
We're gonna do this.
That was
I feel like those are the ones you get.
We didn't have to talk that much because you could see a little bit more on that. It's a longer. We were talking about this earlier. We were talking about how long of a blade we were fishing.
Yeah,
longer than we've ever fished before.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Extra clearance, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely
helps.
Don't have to ever worry about the rudder, but just because it's so far out.
Yeah,
but also it's just a little more load on the rod. So it's almost like having somebody. You can watch the rod and you know what's going to happen before it actually happens.
Yeah.
You can see when he starts to swim up because the rod's starting to unload.
Most of the time, I'm yelling at someone to reel before they realize they even have to.
Yeah. You guys fish Winthrop butts on those rods? Those T10X butts?
Yeah.
Those things are sick.
I
do like them.
Yeah.
What's your go-to angle position?
It changes all the time.
I feel like he's got to be like a horizontal guy.
I know.
No. There was a lot of time that we were
like
almost
it
at
Okay.
Like all your holes were hidden by the
because like a lot of the fish in Rhode Island, they'll stay for a majority of on the surface. So I would go extra high because it's like
Makes
it's almost
perfect
like
sense.
it's pulling down. So like you look at the rod angle, you can get the most load out of the rod.
Yep.
But then when it gets closer, you have to adjust it mid-fight, which is not easy, but it is doable.
Yeah.
At first you fumble around with it, but then you get the
Once you get your tension set perfectly on those things, it's pretty
usually more in the beginning of the fight, not something we're doing like late down the road.
Oh, it's hard. I think we tried to do it once, and it was kind of a disaster. We found it was easier actually just to loosen the drag, pull it out of the holder, and have someone else adjust the butt real quick and
Same, I
throw
would
it back
just hold
in.
it and I had someone else I'd be like, go 1 hole, 2 holes.
Constantly adjusting it though.
But like December, I was fishing them pretty level because the wind sucked that time.
Oh yeah,
it was like, dude, I left P-Town that morning and I was like, pow, pow.
Oh, you went right into it too, like all the way. Actually, was that southwest?
Dude, I can't even remember.
No, it was north.
Yeah, I want to say
I went straight.
It was like
into
northwest the first.
I know,
bet.
like Willie, he came across and I was like, oh man, I was like, how was your ride? And it wasn't bad because he was in the trough. Yeah. I was like, oh, my teeth are rattling right now.
One thing we do too on those rough days in the little boat, we don't have to so much because where we fight is at the pivot point on the starboard side, so it doesn't heave as much. But we will move the rod to the center holder transom on the big boat just to keep from going up and down so much. Seems to work pretty good.
It's also a way that you can like I don't really like being up sea on them that much, but if you like really are watching and you stay up sea a little bit, you can kind of pivot the boats like the tip of the rod stays in the middle.
Yeah.
We were doing that a lot. So like even though you're in the corner, but the tip's in the middle. So no matter how much you're rocking, the tip just like stays where it needs to stay,
Yeah.
Definitely helps with chafing.
For sure.
That's wild. Dude, some of the gear is coming a long way, huh?
It's crazy.
Like just when you think it's over, it's like they get these new crazy whippy
Dude, my
blanks.
first rods, I could do pull-ups off the tip. It's like,
We had the Fenwick white and tan wrap shaggy rods for our first rods. It was just like you said, like they don't even. You snap the ferrule before the fucking rod bends over.
It's changed so much. It's like
really
the reels
has.
have changed, the guides have changed, the line has changed.
The butts even like
The rod technology stayed the same for the last like 30 years. So it's nice to see some new stuff that's like changing the game.
Even the adjustable butt, because like, when you have a fixed butt and if an angle gets weird and the conditions are like wonky, you snap rods.
Oh, yeah.
I've had that happen. Freaking.
What do you guys do for your 130 line setup? You use standard like Dacron and mono guys, or you use braid?
I'm a Jerry Brown 500 pound.
Yeah.
I like the 500.
We had
500 pound. Jerry Brown?
So diameter on that's what, like 100-pound mono or something like that?
Well, it's I feel like it's
130-ish mono.
like getting close to like 200+ pound Dacron. I
Yeah.
like it because it's thicker, so if you do have to yank and crank, you got something to grab. And the other thing too is like in heavy gear situations or people that won't get off the ball if they should get off their ball.
Yeah.
If you loosen that drag a little bit, it will cut through anything. Anything. It'll cut through, another fish. It'll cut,
Engine cowlings, I've seen that.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, I'm pretty sure in the tournament, the second fish that we hooked, it scored that guy's hook when it came up on our line.
Yeah, it was wild. We get tight on this fish, and we're watching this other dude. We're watching the fish walk to the transom of this other boat, and then, oh man, he's gonna get. And then he goes under the boat, and then the next thing you know, this guy's rod starts to load up.
Yeah.
And I'm like watching him starting to crank, and I'm watching the rod angle change back towards his boat, to which we all know it's going. And then Robbie just gets up, this guy was like, all right, what do you want me to do? I was like, freeze, boom. And I'm focusing on the rod, and Robbie's communicating with this dude, but it was pretty funny because as soon as the fish kind of straightened out behind our transom, we see this hook just come flying up.
Oh, yeah.
That's when I lost the gaff because I was trying to gaff his line and I put too much tension on it. And then I realized that I was like, oh, this is not good. So I let go and the gaff just went, and I was like, fuck it. We got another one.
We gave the rod like a quick little shake and the hook just popped right off.
Oh, yes.
But it's funny because remember when that dude's hook came sliding up the leader, we're looking at the hook like,
Yeah, it's like this big.
Yeah.
you're not catching that fish on that little hook.
No.
No.
That's awesome.
Get as big as you can,
Yeah.
right?
I'm like 50-50 on that. It depends on the situation.
Oh, yeah.
Herring, you run into major issues.
Yeah.
Herring, you can't fish that big a hook.
No,
Yeah.
they're frailer than frail. You look at them like this and they go,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but that's like kingfish teeth.
They are.
That is cool.
the moral of the story is whatever hook that you catch fish on that you have the most confidence in,
Stick with it.
stick with it.
Agreed.
Don't mess with success.
Lots of guys change hooks. I mean, we've thought about changing hooks pretty much every year, but it's like just keep fishing it. You
Yeah.
know? Every
Yeah.
one of them pulls. Every one of them.
That's right. Because you don't know, you're not down there putting it. It's not like you get to go and have it right here and go, here, I'm just going to stick it right here. Now I got you.
Yeah.
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 That thing is in here and here and here, around the tail.
You guys troll at all this past year? All live bait fishing?
I did do some slow trolling with live bluefish, and it actually did work fairly well. So
That's
I did it
sweet.
a couple times on some catch and release days.
That's awesome.
And just to try it, and I did it a lot like I slow troll for, stripers. It worked. They crush them.
Drag locked, or you feeding them through the rigger?
I did it just like I would when I'm fishing live bait. I have my drag set at 35.
Yeah.
I always have it right at strike, ready
Yeah.
to go. Because they eat it so fast.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane they can eat a bluefish that hard.
I
that
know,
fast.
it's like
Really,
already
yeah.
down. I don't wait. I know some people like to let them wait, run inside the cabin, scream a lot, and then come back out, and then then give them the boots. I just give it to them right away, and
Yeah. Yeah.
99.9% of the time it works. Sometimes
Does not work.
Yeah.
There were days you fished by yourself, and then there was days we fished together. And I felt like we had a pretty decent hook to land ratio.
Yeah.
It was almost 100% this year. I don't think we had any crotch breaks. No
I didn't
pull
pull any
hooks.
hooks.
So to go 100% for most of the days that we were commercial fishing was like
We had one fish that popped off, but it popped off in the first 45 seconds.
Yeah. I think I only lost 2, and it was in the same day this year.
Yeah. With some of our Patreon guys.
Yeah.
Patreon horrible luck.
Yeah, tuna camp, bad luck.
It's awesome.
it's nice to find like the formula and you just stick with it.
Totally.
Yeah, but you know what? Losing them makes you want them more, and you gotta come back.
Yeah.
Because you tasted it a little bit on the tip of the tongue.
Yeah. We had one fish that same day that we lost both. We lost like 100-incher green, sickle fin out of the water, not pinwheel, nothing, pretty much expecting it. And then we hooked this thing middle of the fucking day. There wasn't a bite down the entire stretch of the edge we were on. And this thing eats, and it continued to try to eat under every single boat to our south. It was like boat shoal in 95, boat edge in 110, and it was probably 8 boats, alternating shoal edge all the way down.
It was really funny to watch from another boat. I'm glad I wasn't on that boat.
He was on the big boat, and the fish went straight to him. He reeled in all his lines and did a complete circle underneath his hull. Like, I'm like, all right, we're past. Like I'm watching the rod angle, fighting him midship, got my angle going. Fish kind of stalls out underneath them and then starts coming back. I'm like, all right, we're clear. I'm like, you can put your down rod back out.
Started putting it out. You immediately snagged
Immediately fucking spin. It was like almost like he looked at the fucking down rod herring when he put it back out. I'm like, holy shit. We got hung up, got out of that. Then the next guy, same thing. Next guy, same thing. This fish didn't even know it was hooked. And then I think when he did that weird maneuver under your boat, he must have been hooked, belly wrapped like twice. And when he did that spin, it just happened so fast. So we end up slacking up and coming tight. What I think happened is the loop dropped back off his body and then hitched over the leader at his tail. Oh. So he had like over his tail, but then over the leader.
The worst.
And then finally we're clear. We're clear. This thing's going right into the bay. Like 6-7 knots, just, the tail beats are just like this. But every tail beat, you can see the leader, like, you know what I mean? It's like, you can see the friction later. I'm like, this is a fucking matter of time.
Bad vibrations.
Parted it. We had like 11 feet of leader back. I'm like, this thing was gut hooked and he was tail hitched. And the thing was like 118 inches long,
Yeah. Those
They're
big
mean
ones
up
are
in
like
the
a
bay.
whole different animal.
They're mean
totally.
in the bay.
They are. What's your theory on the bay pattern and behavior? I know we've talked about sunrise, sunset, wind direction the last time you were here.
Yeah.
But how do you guys think that they move in, move out, or maybe they don't move in, they don't move out?
Man, I used to always think that they were coming along that contour line and just steadily swimming, but now I feel like they could go north, south, east, west, especially the way that this year during the tournament where I saw how the bites were coming, it wasn't like, and it could have been too, there wasn't a lot of guys fishing, on that eastern edge as much as years past. A lot more people were fishing like towards the western edge and just kind of like right
Closer
smack
to Plymouth.
in the middle.
Yeah.
So I used to think they would come around like, wood end and kind of come that way. And it was always an afternoon thing, but it was also a first light thing. I mean, both of our bites were early in the morning, not long after sunrise.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it just varies year to year on how the bait is. It seemed like when we came down early, I would see the pogies in the morning. And then by the afternoon, after we got the fish wrapped up, and I would drive around, side scan, see what I see, and I would not see the pogie balls. I was only seeing them
The hugging, right?
in the morning.
Yeah. Balls in the morning and then like single layer hugging here and there in the afternoon.
So
Seeing the same exact thing.
It's definitely a different bait year this year than it was last year.
Totally.
Last year there was like hordes and hordes of bluefish.
And there was the biomass in P-Town. There was the biomass like deep down in the bay. There was the biomass in Plymouth and Boston. Mm-hmm. And this year it felt like it was more in that southwest corner of the bay is where most of those pogies were.
I definitely didn't remember seeing their pogies were thick this year in Plymouth.
Oh yeah, inside of Plymouth they were fairly thick.
Thicker than I remember them.
Yeah.
This is not staying on.
What's
This
that?
is just the battery.
No, you're good. It's on.
No lights are on.
It's on. You're good.
I've done that twice now.
Who are we talking? Brett. When Brett was in here a couple weeks ago, we were talking.
It's 'cause it's not plugged
And
in.
it's the back. It's on the back. We were talking about patterns and theories and all that sort of thing. And I think our general consensus was like those bigger fish in the bay don't seem to do that whole like roam out to the east thing as much as, the fish that are kind of more transient to the bank. They come in, they'll figure out where the bait's setting up on that specific tide. They'll feed, then they'll go, shoal and back east, whatever. I feel like when they get that big on those pogies, they're not going that far. Like on their, like they come in, they're feeding, low light when it's easy to ambush those pogies in tight.
Those things are swimming around in Barnstable Harbor at nighttime.
Totally.
Eating babies and dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true. And I mean, And it's tough because like they also, you do mark them on occasion, but I feel like so many times I fished in there where I didn't mark anything all day, but I'll catch is because that fish is somewhere between that, 1 to 15 foot range in the water column.
Yeah.
Because it's just, the bay is a weird place where that even fishing pogies, how many times you've been down in the bay and you got a pogie out and you got them at like 20 feet and you catch like a monster bluefish or a bass, just wherever you are.
Yeah.
They're just always out there kind of roaming around too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just crossing, from side to side.
Yeah.
I do find though, obviously my bite windows are, hour and a half before, hour and a half after that current switch.
Yeah.
Whenever that is, it seems to work out for me.
The SeaBros Fishing Podcast is now brought to you by Monaghan's Marine. We recently partnered with Monaghan's and are excited to be working with a local marine business that has been serving the South Shore of Massachusetts since 1961. For decades, the crew at Monaghan's has been helping generations of boat owners with outboard parts, boat service, marine equipment, and fishing tackle. Their professionalism and passion for being on the water has made them one of the most reputable boating headquarters in the Northeast. Monaghan's is located on Washington Street in Weymouth. They're currently a Jones Brothers and Tidewater Boats retailer and have the most well-stocked inventory of Yamaha outboards, parts, and rigging in Mass. The entire staff and crew of technicians have decades of experience. As a recent addition, Monaghan's has built and rigged out a brand new 4,000 square foot offshore and inshore tackle shop. The grand opening of this new space is set for Saturday, April 6th. They will be fully stocked with everything needed for offshore canyon fishing, nearshore bluefin tuna fishing, striped bass fishing, and more. We're excited to be able to use this space as a new home base to maintain our own tackle and charter fishing fleet, as well as a spot to film some upcoming podcasts and workshops. For us, anchor fishing and all that, it's, hour and a half on either side of the tide, but then right at peak current.
Yeah.
Is our
we
next
noticed
window.
that really heavy the last few years.
Like we will always make sure we have a bait check and bait swap right at peak current.
Like the fastest possible.
The fastest possible tide right before that band starts to get the maximum stretch. They'll come through again for a bite.
Yeah, it's
It
weird.
makes sense. If they're going to ride something, that's the easiest water to ride. They can move and change locations with that.
I have to say it's probably like 10 minutes before it or 10 minutes after it though. It's kind of like, oh, here come, peak current's coming. Let's check our stuff. And then it's like, boom, you're on. And then you realize it's peak current now.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily like when our band's the furthest diagonal, would you say?
Prior to.
Just prior to or just after,
Yeah.
but definitely not slack.
And on the slowdown, I feel like on the slowdown, especially on a falling tide, your slowdown's happening several hours before slack. And I feel like those fish will like hang in the deep water and be, I guess, on the lee side of the current on the falling tide. And then as soon as it slows down, they have the energy and wherewithal to cross the shoal and come back to the edge. And we get a lot of our bites then too.
Yeah.
That's funny because it's same thing. Like for us in Rhode Island, our currents aren't very strong. So it's like the bite is good whenever they're just around. But I feel like they travel so far. I mean, it's, you could hook a fish at Cox's, and then if you could follow him, I guarantee you he would swim from Cox's down Brown's Ledge, back Scarborough, go around Block, and do that loop.
Yeah.
It's not all that far for them to go in one day.
No, it's not. I mean, like you have them go 8 miles on a fight on Middlebank to, basically like Tilly's,
I know.
in an hour. You're just chasing them, and then you're in 380 feet of water before you know it.
You think they're doing like feeding circle type patterns?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think they're far from wherever the biomass of bait is.
Yeah.
What is your bait like down there?
This year,
on the feeding grounds, like where are you catching tunas?
it was, if it was offshore, it was sand eels and squid, tons of sand eels and squid, and Cox's does hold bluefish, to a degree, go out towards the vineyard, still more sand eels and squid. Inshore, it's whatever they want to eat, stripers, bluefish, scup, black sea bass, fluke, you got draggers working, there's pogies, we do have pogie schools kind of staggered around. But I will say it was inshore, mostly bluefish. I feel like at least we're starting to see more mackerel too, like more mackerel. And I would say the past 4 years, I've seen more mackerel between like, Point Judith and Block, than we've seen.
It's insane.
That stuff makes me laugh because like we were just talking about this.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a podcast with, long story short, we did a post-release mortality, a couple trips with the state.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had them in for a podcast and we talked about those efforts, but then we also talked about mackerel, and it's like we're all of us, including them, are shaking our heads at it because there's obviously a big biomass.
Well, sort of.
Yeah, sort of.
They definitely seemed on board of like the mackerel population shrinking, which is interesting to hear that you're saying seems to be increasing in the last 4 years.
I just think it's condensing. I think it's shifting and condensing.
And we don't have the same efforts for mackerel fishing that they used to, right? I don't see paratrawlers out there anymore, but we used to. We used to have big paratrawlers that would run, the beaches and get our herring and stuff like that. I don't see a lot of herring. Some years we see some, but definitely there's been a huge increase in the sand eels, and following that, the mackerel started to definitely climb to like now. I mean, we have enough mackerel where before I would striped bass fish with mostly pogies, I can actually reliably go out and jig mackerel and bring that back into bass fish, where before I would never even think of that. Like I wouldn't go out and be like, oh, I'm going to go sabiki up mackerel, and they're all varied sizes. I mean, we get some actually pretty decent sized Boston Max and then plenty of like the Tinker Max.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, there's more sand eels I've seen around in the past 4 to 5 years than I'm marking them everywhere I go. Huge clouds.
Is that what's in these things' stomach for the most part down there?
No, pogies, the big ones.
So it's very mixed.
The big ones got pogies, bluefish, scub, fluke, whatever, squid, a lot of squid. All the smaller fish and the yellowfin that we get inshore, sand eels with some squid, but chock full of sand eels.
You guys fishing squid at all for these things?
If I have to.
Yeah.
I love bluefish. They're so much easier for me to get, but I will put squid out.
Yeah.
For the giants, yeah. Mm-hmm. We remember we had like a vicious jig bite this year. Mm-hmm. It was just phenomenal. And you'd roll into the fleet, and if you just didn't know what was going on or the jigs or whatever, it was like painful to watch some boat just yoking them. Like there'd be days we would go out and, everyone would be smoked by 9 a.m.
So what's the approach? Like talk us through a typical jig.
Well, I was going to say, I'll come back to it. But
yeah.
What I was going to say was all those fish were like 100 to 110 pounds. 65 to 110 pounds is kind of the slot.
Mm-hmm. 45 to 55 inches, something like that.
A bunch of like 65 inch fish. And it was pretty consistent over a pretty decent area. And then one trip this year, Lou and I went down south chasing the 72. We wanted like the max out that you could keep it as a wreck fish. And it was a live squid bite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was definitely some guys, like I would do trips where it was still open commercially, but I would, guys want to catch football, so we're going to do what you want to do. Yeah. So we'll go do that. And then there were guys that were getting 85 to 90 inch class fish on squid certain places. There was a couple places where you could go and you could drop a Point Jude jig down and a couple cranks off the bottom, you're hooking an 80 incher on a spinning rod. Yeah,
wow.
Depending on
I want nothing to do
thanks. I don't want a 50 incher in a spinning rod.
we did a couple, but only it takes the right crews because some people get gassed after a freaking 60 incher, never mind an 85 incher. Where you gotta be able to hold 30-something pounds of drag for an extended period of time.
I think it's important we always keep learning. We had an important lesson this year, which was Robbie calls me. He's like, I got a Tuna charter tomorrow. Let's go. Get all your gear. Get down here. Because some of his gear hadn't arrived yet, and I brought these like big popping rods, and we had that group of older guys.
Well, the long rods were
brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Because
brutal.
Dead sticking Ronzies. Although we did hook that one giant.
Just brutal fighting wise, brutal.
Just
like
a leverage point.
It's a leverage point. It is nicer.
It's harder to work a jig. It's harder to fight a fit. It's perfect for working a popper.
Yeah.
Right? When you're on the yellowfin, it's fine. But when we were talking about that class of bluefin, like you want a rod that's like under 6 feet. so you can control the fish to some extent.
And working a jig is just easier.
We hook a giant, and Robbie's like, "That's a giant," and I look at him, I'm not sure yet. Dumps the reel. We get on top of it.
Watched it come up.
Dumps the reel again, and he's like, "What do you want to do?"
I actually have.
You have this slick trick. He was.
Would you like to see the screenshot of when I screamed at everybody and I said, "Do not reel"? I'm like, "Please do not reel." And one person, of course, goes with their Ron Z slowly. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "You're tight." They're like, "Nying."
Show it on the cameras.
We get spooled a bunch of times, and he looks at me and I look at him, and we're trying to like communicate without the customers knowing what's going on, and we're both just like the best thing to do right now is just get rid of this thing as quickly as possible.
I was cranking on that drag with pliers.
Yeah.
It was hot. It actually, you might have been able to
hot to touch.
Cook an egg on it.
That's unbelievable.
A twin power with like 80-pound braid. It's like, dude, we're connected to this thing. There's no,
Yeah.
Yeah, and he
We're
came
not
up to the
kidding.
surface. He came up to the surface, and I got to look at him, and I said, "Okay, that's 100-incher."
Yeah. So you had a pretty slick move. You're like, go slack on him. And he got on the surface, and then we kind of turned a little bit. And the next thing you know, he's like tail wrapped and everything goes away.
It's amazing.
It's like a magic trick.
Yeah, so
Gonna lose that thing? All right, we're gone.
you can see
And we can both.
show
show
right
it to
to
you
this thing.
first too. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there is the jig right
Yep,
here.
yeah.
And I said, "Don't move the jigs," and it came up, and then it went down, and then that's
thing's-
when I noticed that these are bigger marks. So we still had some small ones in, and that one came up and creamed it. And then the rest of them all started following up. Everybody was reeling up immediately, and I'm like, "Reel like your life depends on it," because the rest of the fish were chasing everyone else's shit.
That's sick. That's an awesome shot.
Yeah.
That's sweet. What leader are you using for the whole jig thing?
That was, we did 80, and I was just running 80 to 80.
80
Yeah, because most of the fish were manageable. I mean, they were, it could be 41 inches to like 55 inches, maybe throw a 60-incher in there.
Perfect
Yeah.
fish.
And you've got what?
Oh,
like
but see here, look, this
3 to
and
8
this is
inches
why
of
Seth
metal
was
there
talking
anyway,
about
right?
how he didn't really like the long rods jigging. See, you can feel the pain
It looks horrible.
in his back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got videos and videos and videos, but it kind of took us back where it's like reflecting on a season where we just did a bunch, because this was new season with the new engines. So it's like back,
Yeah. Yeah, the new engine in the boat did help too.
What'd you get? What'd you put in?
I went with the QSL 9
Nice.
at 450.
What was in there before?
The 6 CTA 450.
okay.
How many hours on it?
27,000.
No. So a couple hours.
So
Gone on a couple trips.
yeah, pretty wild. But
That is insane.
yeah, but running out to where we were tuna fishing, Robbie's like, I don't think we should be going out that far with that old of an engine. And when you reprop this year, repowered this year, I was like, game on, nothing's safe again.
Yeah. Then I finally got my new prop just at the end of the season. It's going to be even better next year.
Yeah.
20 knots, man.
Cruising 20 knots? Wow,
That sounds
that's big.
so nice.
I feel like 16 to 20 knots is a big jump.
Yeah.
20 knots, about around 14 gallons an hour.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, sled.
That's awesome.
And it'll go, and wide F open, 26.
So back to that jig bite. It was pretty ferocious this year, where we were like we were working with I don't know. I mean, you're stuck to what's available at the shops here, right? And I kind of feel like there's a lot of different things that you can go in there and buy, and some of it worked, some of it didn't. But a lot of it was just technique, There'd be times, like in the beginning when we got out there, you'd be watching the screen and you'd be like, faster, faster, faster. And I'm looking like, how? I just don't understand how you could be speed jigging that fast.
That's where ice fishing comes into play.
But that's where he was just like, dude, he's chasing the jig. And I'm like looking at him like he's crazy. And then like the faster you go, you were getting bit. And then it was,
oh, yeah. Just watching how they react to the jig. I mean, it's just like I spend so much time in the winter jigging, so I'm always staring at my electronics because that's how I'd love to do it. So like you can see it when he comes, like, you can just dead stick the jig and he'll come up and look at it, and then like, okay, if I see him starting to come up to that line, I'm like, get it moving. And as soon as it comes moving, if he's just still steady rising, it's not right. But you want to see that angle get steep. Once it gets steep, it's coming.
Yeah.
You're he's gonna crush it.
Faster than anything I've ever.
Do not stop.
Speed jig before, just the speed. And I mean, there would be times you'd go out there and like early morning first light, we drop it and everyone's tight right away. But
and the biggest thing is when you're going that fast with jigging, when you feel the hit, you cannot stop. You have to imagine that you're keep jigging and you jig through the bite, because you got to think, if he's coming up like this, you're moving the jig and he eats it.
It's going past
he's already got momentum, so you have to catch up and just keep it till that rod, I say, till he makes a big run, just keep reeling, reel. Don't stop until you feel that big run. And even reel through the drag just a little bit, and then give the extra couple swings.
What was the hot jig setup?
Luminous, I'd say like the Luminous high pitch rod in like a 400 gram, or even 300. And I really like these Chatter jigs. Chatter Lures makes these jigs. They got a nice profile, but the hook is good, and that they're heavy enough for the size, and that they're not flat, so they're a little bit more rounded, so that with a little bit of tension when you're dropping it down, it'll bomb straight down. So it keeps it straight, and then the action working it up, and they'll just crush it. I mean, it was a dead ringer for that sand eel size. So it matched the sand eels perfectly, but it had the weight to get down. Because a lot of times too, you'd get into an area and you'd be sort of blind drifting, and if you were quick with the jig, it's getting it down. When you marked a fish, you could catch that fish. So when you see him, you get the jig in front of him, get it moving right off the bottom, you're gonna catch that fish.
So when you're saying get it moving off the bottom, are you leaving your jigs just dragging the bottom while you drift and wait until you mark and then you rip it?
If I can. If not, you got to keep it I'll keep it, say, 15 feet down, or have them keep it like 15, 20 feet down, so that when I do mark the fish, then they can drop it. Because the problem is sometimes if it drags too much, which there was a point where dragging them in the mud actually worked. One day where they didn't want it moving. They literally wanted you scraping the bottom with the jig, and they were eating the jigs off the bottom. Lou was out there when that was happening too, and it was like, just drag it in the mud. In fact, the show I did with On the Water, Chris Megan found that out, and he was doing well. I mean, and he was making fun of Jimmy just sitting there, because I think Jimmy's
working probably.
Yeah, because Jimmy hadn't caught any fish, so he's already, I can see the sweat physically coming off him, because he's like, if I let Chris outfish me on camera, this is bad. It's bad. They're very competitive. Watching them two interact is awesome. They're super competitive. So Chris is just sitting there with his jig dragging on the bottom, talking a bunch of shit, and all of a sudden it's just like, boom! I'm pretty sure I saw Jimmy's soul leave his body slightly, but then he sucked it back in. Got it together.
So good.
That's great.
It's such a different way of fishing.
It'd be crazy that there'd be days that Robbie'd be out there and it'd be a charter, so it's the Robbie show with the charter, and you've got to coach the charter through what to do. Mm-hmm. And it could take a little bit of time for everybody to get, dialed in. But, when I'd be running with Lou, we'd go out there with a group of assassins. And everyone would kind of start off with a different style. So slow, fast, speeding through the water column. But inside of a few minutes, we would have...
You can dial it in.
Okay.
But it's difficult to do if you have a group of guys that everyone's never done this before.
Jigged before.
They don't know what it feels like.
That's where that Ron Z comes into play. Yeah. But the problem with the Ron Z is you put that thing down there and dead stick it.
The giant's gonna find it.
Damn giant always seems to eat it, because they were mixed.
Which usually isn't a bad thing, but for that I could see
probably it looks more like a mackerel under the eels or something like that.
Yeah, what size profile are you using, Ron Z?
It's about that big. It's the biggest one with the HD one. Head. Yeah. I mean, you could put that down, and in pink it was deadly.
Squid probably.
We were doing, and it was right on the back of when we were just getting a little bit tired of oh man, this is painful. It was the tri-state, and it was just on the back end of that vicious jig bite, and everyone had gotten hot to the vertical jigs. So that one day in the tri-state where we had a lay day where you could go and target an off species, it was fluke, sea bass, whatever, but there was a bluefin tuna category, and Lou and I were Ron Z's in this fleet, are going to produce a fish that's going to be hard to beat. And sure enough, when we got out there, it was all Ron Z's. Everyone's yoked up around us fighting, 58-inch fish, and we were able to pick out a 72.
That's sweet.
And it was the Ron Z,
Yeah.
And what are you doing action-wise with those? Just letting it sit perfectly still?
Just casting it on the back of the whale and just let it.
You can cast it. Some people, it depends. If you're a fidgety type of customer, I'll have you slowly like cast it out, let it sink, and just lift, and then reel down, and you can work it back through the water column. If you're one that's patient, you can just sit there like this and hold it, and you just hold it there, and it just does its thing, and then it's just like, boop. I actually don't even put the rods in the rod holders anymore with it because you break rods that way.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes the rod holder's like vertical and I have like dead stick it and I'll go do something. The next thing I know, I'll turn around and I'll see it like,
I know a few guys are putting them on 130s in Chatham.
yeah, I'm sure.
Fishing them, but have you tried like giant fishing with them yet?
I haven't.
Real?
I always have live bait and I'm prepared, but you know, it's always, we have caught giants on them with the heavy spin gear.
Yeah.
You could bump your gear up to like 130 fluoro, 100-pound braid.
Yeah.
That's almost impossible. I mean, that's going to put out more than you're able to.
Kevin from Blue Line Charters, he was doing it with customers on 50 wides.
Dom does it.
And he
So I was
was
wondering, like-
and he was actually, because to get him down, he was 3-weighing him. So he was actually using a like 16-ounce sinker and then having the Ronzi off so he could like keep it straight up and down so he could watch it and fishing it like a bait. And he was getting tight, catching 90-inch fish that way.
That's sick.
Yeah. But I think you got to have all that stuff in your quiver.
Oh yeah,
You know?
yeah. Like the
Squid
one day
jigs,
that
sabiki rigs.
if I had no live bait and for some reason the day came where I couldn't find anything alive to eat for the for the bluefin to eat, I would put a Ronzi on a 130 and have enough confidence. I'd be like, I'll catch a fish.
Yeah.
They see it, they eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the pink one
sip-
too. I've heard a lot of guys say pink.
Pink and root beer were two killer
me, it's
colors this
silver.
year.
Silver, yeah.
Yeah, silver's always good.
Yeah.
Seems like it. I mean, once you start going through it, it seems like it doesn't matter. Like I know guys that swear by that,
Green.
like kind of like olivey green color. Not
The
bright
tri-state
green, but
fish
like
this
that.
year was on pink.
Was it?
Yeah. It was a nice it was like a nice little, you know, we stroked it in the canyon. It was a really, really difficult season. Like, I don't know if it was the boat, that 92 just puts out too much noise or whatever.
Much water though.
we
That
just had
water
a
came
really
in early
difficult-
and you never got any new water
Yeah.
that came in. It was just like the same water. It was just there.
We won the money just on the off species, like swordfish and a bluefin. Crazy.
Sometimes that's all it takes, though.
Calcutta's, baby.
I think we took third place in the big game battle with a mahi and a mako shark one year.
Yeah, oh yeah, when it was like 800-foot seas.
Yeah.
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 It's always that way though. When
Yeah.
is there ever a tournament where it's like
I know.
Normal seas.
actually the only one would be the Boston Bluefin that one day where it was like
Perfect.
flat. I mean, there was no wind.
Yeah. Yeah. This past season was great. It was really good up here. Very consistent. A lot of big fish.
Did anyone get out in January? And
I heard of a few fish caught.
Yeah.
I don't know who they were. I just heard it through the grapevine. I'm sure there was a couple. It seems like they get a few like on Jeffries,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't know an actual first-hander.
It was pretty crazy how quick that December thing shut down once all that pressure was on them, though. Like the fourth day.
yeah, the fish got
you
I
just
could never
knew,
tell by
like-
day 2. Once
Yeah.
they were already being like, oh, we're dying.
Yep.
It's time to not eat exactly how we're supposed to.
You just rolled up and there were a few fish still on the herring at first light. And then once the sun came up, it was like the bait was just completely unpressured on the machine the whole day. It was just top to bottom red. You
You
know?
guys see that kind of pressure down Rhode Island?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
I mean, you can if they start killing them on the edge, you can see it wane a little bit. But I mean, there's not as much pressure as there is in the bank. So like our pressure is definitely different. I mean, you know, there were so many boats in December. Navigating was crazy.
Insane.
I mean, I was going. The second day I was like, nope, and I went past around P-Town. I went down to Peaked Hill and went that way towards the southeast corner, and I came in. I just left super early, and then I just came back in this way.
On the
Yeah.
east side,
Just
Smart.
I came from the east going to the west, and I was like, this way I'll be one of the furthest boats on the edge.
Yeah.
You know?
And probably closest to the fish because that's the way they were coming in the morning.
Yeah,
Right,
like
so I was
northeast.
trying to saddle like the southeast like side, like be the last boat to the southeast.
Yeah.
The furthest north I went was the day that I saw Weber up there.
Yeah.
And when all those fish were breaking, because in the binos, I was seeing so many birds, and I was like, I can't sit here now. And then as soon as I got up to where all those birds were, and it was crazy.
There were giants everywhere.
They were just everywhere, and I was like,
Poor beagle, poor beagle.
dude. I almost snapped a rod over my knee. I was mad. I had never been so mad in my life.
It's awesome.
Yeah. What are the chances? Like, it definitely had to be the
few guys,
same
actually.
poor beagle. But no, I mean, dude, I threw my mackerel was like this, and the tuna sickle fin was like this, and it hit it, and I'm like, he's turning around to eat it, and then there was just a poor beagle sitting there like,
That's too funny.
How bad are the sharks down Rhode Island?
not terrible. Depends on the time of year. The August, like July, you can get into spinners pretty good. You can get into duskies pretty good. They can be a pain. More towards September, you do have an occasional thresher, and maybe a blue dog here and there, but not too bad.
Yeah.
Manageable. Like when we first went, and like before that bite down there like blew up, when I first went and tried that very first time, when I got word of the lobster guys, I think that first day before we hooked a tuna, I definitely hooked like 12 sharks. They were really bad. Ugh. But I just kept drifting.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to just grind through it, unfortunately.
Yep.
Instead of wasting the time driving around to figure out where they aren't.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know?
We just kept fishing.
Oh, we left that one day. We left
Sometimes it
When
pays off to
when
leave.
we got into all those threshers.
5 threshers in a day, and we were like, we gotta get out of here.
Those are
But I
brutal.
knew that there were so many threshers. Giants and threshers go hand in hand a lot of times. So like there's definitely like a weird correlation, I feel. But there were so many threshers, and I marked no tunas. I was like, dude, these things slipped by us. And I was like, we went in, and I ran back in towards Newport, like 10.5 miles. I set up on a drift, and I didn't like it. So like 30 seconds went by. I pulled all the baits in, and I reset, and then we got bit like
We got dumped.
30 seconds later.
Yeah. I don't think that spot had taken off ever. And then we went in there just to poke and see what happened, because the lobster guy was like,
when I was
I've been
sneaking-
seeing him. We're
When I
like,
was sneaking over to the secret zone,
Yeah.
I found that there's like a lot of guys will fish the edges, like obviously by Point Judith and stuff like that, but they're all over the place. You can just disappear and they come through.
Did you guys fish the dragger bite thing at all down there? The hand feeding stuff I was seeing, or?
I did not get on any of that, but some guys did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty good.
Yeah, it looked pretty wild.
yeah, it was right around the time of the big, the classic.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Carmine had called me, and he was like,
Well, he was on the one that was off east, off
Nantucket.
Chatham.
no, it was
Nantucket.
Nantucket. And he got like an in-reach call, like, they're on the boat now. He's going. So he went out there. I think he,
Look, I
put
was
the fish in the boat, and he's like, this thing's over 1,000. I'm like, dude, it ain't over 1,000. How many inches is it? He's like, 116. It's a pig. I'm like, I'll bet you lunch. that thing is not over 1,000 pounds. And it was a nice fish, probably in the mid 800s, but he said it was on like a 12-pound fluke.
That's crazy.
And bounced it off the dragger, and they got tight and somehow got around the gear and were able to catch the fish. But we were talking about that during the tournament, and Robbie can get into this weird zone where he's just like, don't put any stupid shit in my head right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't
He's got a
mess with
plan.
me.
He's got a plan, and you just leave it alone. I'm going to focus on bait. I'm going to focus on rigging and other things, and just let him figure it out.
It's usually when it goes best.
Don't chase that bite.
No.
I had the fuel though, and I was like, I got the fuel and speed. Waiting it.
Yeah, we were talking about
Calculating.
that.
I can just picture him with numbers and like
Yeah.
things falling down.
The
like
hangover.
Zach
Like that
Galifianakis.
scene out of Limitless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The numbers are just falling from the sky
Yeah.
like the Matrix.
Or blackjack during in the hangover. It's funny.
Yeah, those guys have got some absolute slobs on those draggers.
Yeah, they did.
Oh yeah.
Cool videos. Definitely not as cool as the Bluefish video.
There's nothing like those Bluefish videos.
They're so angry.
Not many people have them either. It's very hard to get like a zoomed in shot
Oh, we would get
of them.
I know that one that we got, actually that Earl got when he was with me that day. It had literally been chasing it for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then I go, dude, where's your phone? And then we started actually filming it, so it had already been like.
Now, have you noticed there's kind of two different bites with those things? There's like the chasing, trying to kill it, and then there's this, you're on?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think that is? You think they just get them by surprise?
Yeah, I think if they can catch them at the right angle, because if they're blended in, because that water's not super clear or anything. It's always got that kind of greenish tinge to it. So I feel like they can sneak up with them and then they just vacuum them in. Next thing you know, he's Jonah and the whale. It's all dark.
You definitely get more of like the, like with the bunker, it's bang and go.
Yeah.
But with the bluefish, you can notice the bait's like, oh,
Yeah.
boom.
I will say though too, one thing that I did find is if I was marking a lot of fish on the side scan, if I got rid of the balloon and just fished one rod, total free spool, and let him swim around, he would get picked up right away.
Why? Just
I don't know.
You don't know?
Because I could see him in the water column on the side scan, and I knew that they were there, and they wouldn't. I would see the balloon get nervous, but it wouldn't get eaten. And the amount of fish that I'm marking definitely should have got eaten. So then I would take the balloon and just let him swim around on his own with nothing, pull out a bunch. And then normally by the time that I would strip a bunch of line off and let it come tight, they were on him.
Sort of the same
Weird.
as like bass. Put a little balloon on a live mac, they're not going to touch it.
It is.
I'll show you the exact situation. So, the screen would look a lot like this.
Are they getting deeper, you think? You think they're just getting down
I don't know
where
if
they
they're
are?
getting deeper, but it's like, this is all around. I've been marking that for like
we'll show that.
10 minutes.
Bring it right up to the camera.
But it's like, why are you not tight?
Yeah.
And then something about just taking the balloon off and letting them just swim.
We've definitely done that with like removing weights and stuff.
Very good.
But I don't know. I feel like when you get to that point, a lot of times you're just on,
Yeah.
you know?
So that would go on for like 10, 15 minutes and it's just constant. And I'm like looking at the balloon and it's doing this. Oh.
Come in?
But
Riley's coming in to say hi.
I heard you grumbling out there anyway, right? And then it's like, you should be tight. No one else is around me.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I took the balloon off and just let them swim around, I don't know, maybe it was they just found the right depth themselves.
Yeah.
Versus me trying to figure out how to set it.
That's cool. Have you guys, I'm assuming you guys have linked up, joined forces on the Airbnb lodge thing and then doing offshore charters, or are they still separate? Or
If I can. He's always cranking with that thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole animal on its own.
He's so busy with his customers that it's like, it's not the same customer.
Yeah, I got you.
His customers coming in to fish with Robbie, and they're coming in, they're fishing, they're leaving. Some are local, some aren't. My customers are coming in and spending like a week with their family.
Gotcha.
So it's sometimes it's a lot of and sometimes there's overlap, but most of the time people want to come in, they want to relax with their family. Maybe they'll go out if the weather's right or if the fish are biting, but Robbie's operation is more like hard. They're coming to fish with Robbie because they want to fish with Robbie.
Yeah.
It's so busy. You have to take people out.
How many trips you do this year?
317.
Jesus.
That's a lot.
Yeah. He does this maneuver. He's like, when you talk to him after bass season keeps going, you're like, Robbie, you want to go to dinner? He's like, what? He's doing doubles every day. And, yeah. It's wild, though. Yeah, but
Yeah, you guys are always.
That's good that your clientele's different, but also similar. I'm sure there's ways you could kind of cross brand and stuff. But
there's a lot of times that clients that are in the lodge want to go giant tuna fishing, like
September.
October.
September's a big one.
So
That's
I'll pull them in and I'll entertain, and then we'll just figure out the day.
Yeah.
Is it a harvest day? Is it a release day? What are we doing? And so that's a lot of like plug and play there.
Yeah.
Because it's a certain customer that comes to do the giant tuna fishing. It's not just like any Yahoo that just calls you, let's go giant.
Especially that time of year.
Yeah, you almost got to get vetted, It's all right, you want to come giant tuna fishing, you have to understand what this entails.
Yeah. You're going to get Shanghai.
Yeah. We're going to be on a boat, it may happen early, it may happen late, it may not happen at all. It's like, have you ever hunted? Do you know what it's like to sit in a tree stand? Mm-hmm. If you can understand those concepts, then
you'd be good.
You'd be good. How many guys that go on big game hunts for elk out west and they never even get a shot?
For seasons, they'll do it.
Yeah.
Until they get a shot.
We had a pretty decent like when we get rocking and rolling, like I'll do the trips with the guests and we'll just go bait fishing. You know, they're super stoked to just catch bluefish all day, and I'm putting them in the tank, and they have no idea what's
Thanks,
going on.
guys.
Yeah, the kids are looking at the bluefish, and
Do we eat them? No.
yeah. Yeah, but we had quite a number of guests that came up, and we would take them blue fishing and then giant tuna
Awesome.
fishing, so they get the whole experience from the upper to the lower and then outside.
That's sweet.
Bluefish can definitely save the day. I mean, this days that we've had, like in August when people want to catch bass and you're like, you know, there's not many bass around, but there's bluefish and they haven't caught bluefish before and they have a ball.
Yeah,
And they fight way harder.
Hard. Even people that say they don't want to catch bluefish, and if the bass fishing is slow,
They want to immediately catch.
you put them on some big topwater gators, and they're like, "This is awesome."
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
I know.
that's like me. Like if I was down in Florida on a charter and we were trying to catch something that's slow, I'd be like, I'm the perfect person. Like, take me to catch amberjacks or
Right.
something. Like to me, it's awesome. Like I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
We had this trip this year, and we're doing some filming on something, and the shot required a big bass, and Robbie knew exactly where they were, and we come rolling around the corner, and I'm looking at this like this is a double overhead wave breaking with a beautiful barrel. Look at that. And we're getting closer and we're getting closer, and I got my phone out and I'm videotaping. I'm like, oh my God, look how majestic this is. And Robbie's like, all right, get ready. And I'm looking at him like, you're not gonna do this, are you? And he's like, we put them out, and then he turns the boat, and I'm looking at this set coming in, and I'm looking around, and I'm just like, well, fuck everybody, I can make it to land. And he makes a turn and like puts us in a position to take this thing like dead over the bow, and we get tight, and then like this wave just kind of backs off just enough that it doesn't break, and Robbie's looking at me like, ha 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 ha. My heart's down here, and I'm like, we're gonna die.
I'm trying to give everybody a little pucker factor.
Oh man, dude, I was like,
That's funny.
You gotta know where she breaks and where she doesn't.
yeah, we were on the edge of the arrow, man.
Some of the big rocks we fish north of Situate, like around Minot Light and stuff, when we get those like storm surges, those are scary. Like sitting there with the Rodan and you're like 30 feet from these giant boulders, and
Yeah. If
the
that
customers are looking at you like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's where they live.
It is where they live.
Yeah.
He had me going.
What have you guys been? I know you've been fishing through the ice a lot. So maybe talk a little bit about that passion and anything else you're doing this winter.
Florida for me. Florida, Bahamas for me.
Yeah.
Really, this year for me, just tuning in like slow pitch jigging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Slow pitching just so that, you know, I can have that tuned and fine tuned when we come back this year.
Yeah.
Holdover fishing during some of our epic rainstorms. Yeah, me and Jimmy Fee drove all the way to Connecticut, only realized like the whole state was flooded. Yeah, but we did find some holdovers. We found somewhere we actually were able to catch a few.
That's cool.
But I mean, I had like it was like the Hoosie was like 10 feet over flood stage. And in fact, my first cast, I was like so far away from the shore, but I landed in the middle, and I was like, "Oh, I'm tight!" And it was all of a sudden, I'm like, "What the?" Then I like finally like some light came through the trees, and I could see it's just this huge thing of logs floating down. Well, there goes that.
What's been some of the trophy ice fishing catches this year?
We had some good Laker fishing. I mean, look, it's been a tough year for ice, so I had to patiently wait. But we just got back from our week-long trip at Moosehead, and it was good Laker fishing and good cusk fishing. Actually, we fished a tournament the first couple days we were there, and I lost one that would have placed. I hooked it right on the outside of the face. So like we're fishing with Mega Live, so you can see the Lakers. And I'm fishing this one spot where you don't get typically a lot of fish, but if you're diligent, you can get a decent fish, you know, something that'll be 10 pounds or better. So I'm fishing these big glow tubes. They're about this big. They got a treble stinger, and then tip it with a big piece of sucker. Yeah, I'm sitting there, I'm jigging. I can see the tube on the machine with the Mega Live. And then finally, like, I just see him creeping in along the bottom. I'm like, here we go. So I pound the sand a little bit, and he starts coming in. And then I get him coming up, and I'm getting him coming up. And with the live imaging, I can't wait to apply this to salt water. Like, chunking, vertical jigging, even just you could watch your bluefish swimming along and watch something come up and eat them because you can see everything real time. So I see him and he's got super steep angle. He's coming for the tube, no problem. I'm going, and I'm at 55 feet of water. So he finally closes the distance, and I got 15 feet to the hole, and he nips it, and I'm like, ah, and then he kind of freaked him out a little bit. I don't know if he felt the hook, but he goes this way. And then I'm like, I pause the jig just to see what he's going to do. And then you can see the fish's body turn with the Mega Live. And now I know he's pointing down a little bit. So I open the free spool and then the race is on. Dude, it is awesome to watch lake trout chase a jig down because they get fired up. So the tube, you can see it. It's spiraling like this. And this lake trout is doing like a tornado around it. And he shoots out really wide. And I see it and he lines it up. And then I see him just beelining it in with speed. And I'm watching my line and it just stops. And I'm like, he ate it on the drop.
That's sick.
So now I got him and he's taking drag and I'm yelling to my buddy who's in a shack over because I'm like, dude, like it's going to be difficult to try to lead him through the hole. Like I'm going to need a hand. And then after like a 5-minute fight, I get him up and he does a first drive by and I see the tube and he's hooked on the worst spot outside of the face on the stinger. And I'm like, oh no. And I get him and the hook just hits the corner of the ice. He shakes his head and he just freeze himself, but I can still see him. So I go full on dive mode, arm all the way in, just like feeling around. Like, yeah! And I can just feel it, just his tail just go right through my hand. Oh. But the second one that I ended up losing that trip when I was fishing with Kevin, which wasn't a big fish and the tournament was already over, I was so mad that this little fish, like I tried to get him off and he popped off and you could see him. He just slid back down the hole and I just reached down and grabbed him, Vulcan grip. I was like, I got you.
Passion.
It was.
I love it.
It was good. But that's why I love vertical jigging for anything. If I can stare at the screen and watch it, I'm just like, eh.
I feel like you're one of the most wide variety passion fishermen I've ever met.
Oh, dude.
Like I like fishing. I love fishing. Obviously, you do it for work, but I'm kind of specific on what I like. I feel like
If I don't fish every 3 days, I'm a cranky person. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not nice. I gotta be out there.
It's wild.
that's awesome.
You think we get bored of it?
There's too many things that I haven't caught and too many different ways to fish, and there's always a new technique. I mean, even with like the live imaging stuff with ice fishing, it's like unbelievable. I'm like, oh my God. Because you can stare and look at structure specifically, see fish, bait schools, and you really learn the relationship on how the lure works in their 3D realm versus how they're reacting to it. I mean, I'm working on how to put a mount because like there's not a very good mount now, but watching it because it would be sick on the chunk bite that we get for like yellowfin and bluefin. You could be throwing the chunks and watching them swim through and eat them, and then just like pitch your bait out and you know exactly when they eat it.
Yeah.
Or just like watching the bluefish swim around and being able to say, oh man, there's a shark chasing that one.
Yeah, reel it in.
And reel it in. You know, you don't got that many baits, so it's like, we don't want to catch that.
Yeah.
And then
good point.
watching, how cool would it be to just watch live how the giant is coming up to it? Is he swimming fast? Is he swimming like those bites that where it just goes down? You can watch how that goes down because you can record the stuff on it.
Yeah.
Just to see how that
That's
plays
cool.
out.
Yeah, technology's become insane.
The forward-facing stuff is nuts too.
Oh, yeah.
There's freshwater forward-facing.
So you
sonar.
can with that, like this Mega Live stuff, you can change it to forward facing. You can put it landscape mode or down imaging. I used it a little bit in the spring with the landscape mode because what I would do is when we were slow trolling pogies for bass, put it in landscape mode. So I got it out, it goes behind the boat so I can see my pogies. So I would know when the bass are coming in. So if I saw like a single bass coming on the pogie, I just let them eat it. But sometimes you see like 5 or 6. Before they even close the distance to the bait, I already had a top water firing it over the pogie and then be like, here, take this and get it twitching. And then you'd watch them just peel off and boom, crush the top water.
Wow.
That's cool.
It definitely adds
Obsessed.
He's obsessed.
like,
Love it.
I love it. That's awesome.
What else you got? Doing.
I mean, we've been going hour and 40.
I feel like I just drank my coffee.
I know.
That thing is insane.
It is insane.
Dacus bones.
Wish there was an easy way to do it, but that's what makes it so beautiful. Is because it's not easy to do.
What's the ultimate goal with where that thing's going? You're going to case it? You're going to leave it free
Oh, it's
floating
going to sit like
that?
this. It's going into my trophy room, but I think This thing belongs in like a super high-end restaurant or somewhere where it could be seen.
What we got to do is what I just talked about is get that muskie. Go up to Maine, get a muskie, and give him a whole muskie.
It's funny you say that because I was thinking that right when I saw
Muskie
it.
would look
Can't believe you haven't done like a pike or a muskie.
I was saying how cool would it be to have like a total. Imagine this. Imagine a muskie, full body that looks like it's swimming in an epoxy table.
That'd be cool.
That'd be sick.
How are we going to get him one to do the full body?
You can make a pretty wicked
So,
table out of that.
I've got-
not like basically exactly how you have it, but put just a glass top.
Like
So
that
you can-
gator table.
Like the gator table at
that
the
was sick.
resort. So it's basically like that, and then you just have a glass top over with like 2 posts, so you're looking down at the head. Be pretty wicked.
It's such a big piece.
It's awesome. What's your here's a question we've never asked people because I know fishermen love their trinkets and their trophies and their
Yeah.
What's like your most prized thing that you have? Something that you've caught that I figured that much.
What's even close?
I know.
It's my jar of hooks of the ones that got away.
Yeah.
Oh, you keep the ones you got away.
Oh, bent trebles, all kinds of hooks. So like striper hooks, tuna hooks, anything that was deemed worthy that got away.
I did save the that Rapala. It was like, I'll show you exactly which one it was. But I bought like maybe 20 of them, and we burned through almost all of them for this season on the Bluefish. You know, one reason or another you lose them. But I brought like 2 or 3 that I had left out to the Cape with us. And like on the last day when we needed to go bait fishing, the thing was like missing the lip.
No lip.
There was missing plastic in the front, but it was still catching. It was still catching bluefish. You know, just
That's awesome.
trying to work it on the surface for explosion bites. I got that one saved in the corner. That's gonna go with this.
That's cool.
And then there's a bluefish skull that sits here.
Oh, that's sweet. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that thing's amazing.
I think a full bluefish going in that thing's mouth would be cool. I'm assuming it
Crazy.
ate a bluefish, right?
If you could take the jaws and open it up, it'll open like twice that size.
Yeah.
And this whole thing pops out like like a parrot.
That's wild.
Yeah, when they flare their gills too, I mean, width-wise, it goes way bigger.
I mean, think about how hard all of this is. Like, just to get a hook to penetrate it, you know, if you don't get them somewhere in over here, all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's incredible how much drag you can put, even when he's in the latch right here.
Yeah.
You know, how much drag is on the reel, how much force is on the leader at the end game there.
It's also crazy how different the fights can go based on whether you have him hooked just in this like 4-inch.
Yep.
This 4-inch difference. You know, whether they submit, get on their side, whether they're black back. It's pretty crazy. Cool animal. What's your prized
My prize trinket?
trinket?
Yeah.
I mean, the 1,000-pounder tail is pretty sick. The tail, my dad and I, actually the only like big giant my dad and I ever caught together. It's pretty cool so far. I'm sure it'll happen again, but
Yeah, I think that's cool.
the charter just didn't show up. We just went out and got like a 750-pounder.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was cool. And it was a battle. We 2.5 hours and harpooned it and then pulled the hook and then had him on the dart line for like 45 minutes and then got another dart in it. So it was a sick story. Yeah. That tail's definitely important. The 1,000-pounder tail. I have a couple good hooks too, but
I have the same thing you have. I have a one of those Lowe's yellow top bins, just full to the brim of old leaders, lost hooks, shit I've pulled out of fish. The ultimate goal is to, once we upgrade this podcast table, is to do a river table, live edge river table with epoxy down the middle, and I'm literally just gonna dump that entire thing
That's cool.
in there.
Our buddy Davenport, who's coming up to that seminar at Ralph's next week, had bought a container full of all this old stuff, and he had like cases and cases and cases of these like old school poppers, and they were making epoxy tables with all these old poppers.
That's cool.
Yeah, super cool, super amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I think that stuff's awesome.
I think it'd be cool to take a tournament winning marlin plug, and then somehow like have it look like it's getting pulled behind the boat
with the bubbles
through the epoxy
that actually
river with
wouldn't
the
be
bubbles.
hard to do.
It would be sick.
The only thing with like when you put something with a clear head, it would have to be a tinted head to make it really look nice. But once you put the clear head in there,
All you see is the insert.
all you see is the insert because it's kind of hard to explain. But it's like putting something clear in water, it just disappears.
Fraction index.
But if you'd added the bubble factor and like moving it, you'd have to probably let the epoxy cure like 80% and then just like drag it through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could probably create that like trail effect in the epoxy pretty easily, actually.
Get some white epoxy with a syringe and start making little bubbles in it.
You get one shot at that though.
Yeah.
That's the thing with epoxy that is tricky.
It's a big risk.
It's an expensive, giant risk when you're building like a table or anything that you like put something in, like those sword bill tables. You get one shot. That's it. You can't fix it. You can tweak things. Like I've had to kind of tweak a few things with them, but you get one shot with the actual pour.
Hey, just an idea. Maybe a collaboration with Dave.
Would love to.
Where he does the, and then instead of assembling it, you just have it all parted out in the epoxy.
That'd be pretty
Be
wild.
sweet.
Yeah.
It would be cool just to do the like rib cage rack on a tuna in the table too. You know?
Yeah.
Be sweet. It's flat enough. You wouldn't need
Has he done
material.
a tuna tail, like the tuna tail bones? That would be wild.
Yeah.
Because those look, I don't know if I'm guarantee you've seen them, but when they get really like rotted and dried, you see all the bones and the little like fan pieces coming out. That'd be cool to have in a table.
There's a lot of neat stuff. I mean, that dude, I think you guys have one here. Joe H, his guy Utaku's.
Oh, Higgins? Yeah, that 1,000-pounder tail he was talking about, that print that's in the dining room downstairs.
Him and I were texting, was it last week? And he's like, I'm coming to Florida. We need to get some exotics. I'm like, how exotic you want to get? No, seriously.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, we can get some exotic stuff, but the thing is, it's got no market value because no one's going to know what it is. You know?
Yeah. He's printing new species pretty frequently now.
I think it'd be really cool to do a live edge table with a guy Utaku, plus the bones, plus the, you can get really
sweet.
crazy with it.
We had a customer, we didn't end up going through with it, but had the idea he wanted to do a bar top at his house. And then the live edge side, he wanted the canyon contours cut into it. So the patron side, you'd have them all in there. But
that'd be some CNC routing.
it's a lot of material.
Robbie called me during, what's crazy is like, as crazy as he is with tuna, like the light switch will hit and it's like equally as crazy in blackfish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you go down to the dock and there's like,
Well, he freaking makes out with them.
Yeah.
You know?
So he calls me and he's like, dude, we got to do a rub with this blackfish. How big was it? It was a big one. It was nice.
It was like a 13, 14 pounder that didn't make it back. Got to do like this fish. I was like, Seth, we got to make a fish print out of it.
Oh,
Didn't live.
I took all day getting this whole thing all set up. I gave him one of the rubs for Christmas.
Got crabs on it. He did. It was
That's
nice.
Yeah, I asked. I was like, give me the crab you caught this on. And he pulled out a crate and he pulled out a white crab about the size that fish ate. And we did a print with the blackfish with the crab. And then when I was trying to do that and get it right, I had like a piece of canvas that was like 8 feet long. And so I did like 9 different blackfish prints on this sheet with like 100 crabs raining everywhere.
That's cool.
And I'm all proud of it. I'm super stoked. I'm like borderline crying at how beautiful it is. And I bring my wife in. I'm like, what do you think? She looks at me and goes, she's like, did you get high? And well, what is this?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's great.
pretty rad.
I'm excited to get my deer mounts back.
I'm excited to bend some poles here coming up.
Yeah.
It's flying by. It's winter.
I think you guys, I mean, it's nearly impossible for you with charters, and you get going pretty early, but you should try to come up and shad fish with us a couple nights.
Shad fishing can happen.
It's a lot of
The
fun.
American shad is, it's poor man's tarpon.
Yes.
It's very difficult.
It's not easy.
I still haven't put my hands on my own fish yet.
No, you've touched them. You just haven't gripped them.
Yeah, true.
We're talking about ones that look like hickory shad.
Yes.
Yeah, just-
American shad.
They're American shad, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally different animal.
Yeah.
You got the print with the.
Oh, the hickory shad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hickories, you could like really catch them with lures and stuff. If you
I caught a hickory shad on a chunk in the North River. No word of a lie.
like anything pink and red, like Ronzi, the tiny little Ronzis.
But those American shad, when they're running, like it's not far from here. It's only a 5-minute ride to the basically the very top of the river where they all come up to spawn. It is not easy, man. Like they break you off in fucking everything.
We'll go up there with a 12-foot cast net and see what we can do.
Oh, that you could do some damage.
easily.
Illegal damage.
We got to take the Optimist, dude. The Optimist. We have the rod for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Perfect flex.
We've thought of everything though. We're like,
4
we need to
pound.
get like high, we're going to get giant lights and shine down because some of the water we're fishing is only like 10 inches deep.
Yeah, you're seeing their backs like ripped through
Yeah,
those
so
little
we need giant
channels.
lights. We can see every fish that comes through this area.
Yeah. It wasn't as good last year because we had a ton of rain in May, and you couldn't get in the river. It was just horrible.
Yeah.
But we had a couple decent nights.
Yep. I had 3 one night. That was like epic for me.
I had one night that I finally hooked up. We didn't have many bites that night.
No.
I finally hooked up, and I'm like running this thing down. My buddy's like with the net. Like, I haven't released one yet, so everyone was switched on to try.
Yeah, we're trying to get your fish.
Everyone is like trying to corral it, and this thing is like ready to be netted. It's just like, away from me. Leaders run up the side of its back, and Pritch goes to net it. I shit you not, this thing just fucking rips underneath a laydown, underneath the water. It's in like 2 feet. Rips underneath the laydown. I'm like, and I back the drag off, and I just go, and I throw my rod under, like in the water, just to get it to. It worked. It like went up and under.
And he came around and wrapped around.
Came around, and the shad dart got stuck in Pritch's waders, and then dehooked the thing. And I'm like, fuck! That was the most epic fucking catch ever.
Keeps you coming back for more.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fun. It's like 200 casts to every bite for the most
Pretty much.
part. Some nights it gets good. We get bass up there too. It's just wild. Like in the same week, you can catch trout, bass, American shad. It's a cool little fishery. But
We do some bass fishing together, and I was looking at
I don't know if your son will ever come bass fishing again
he
after
says
the turtle incident.
He says, but these like
Oh my God,
$100
that video,
glide
the
baits.
snapping turtle.
Oh yeah, my son still talks about it. He's like, you scarred me for life, Robbie, and he's serious. He's dead serious. He's
Couldn't help it. I heard him in the reeds. I was like, I hear him. That's a turtle. We'll go grab our
he
friend.
comes running out with this turtle, and the thing is like, and my kid is like. And Robbie swings it at my kid, and it's like close enough to he oh man, he fell in the river so many times that day. Every time Robbie would be like, he'd be like, ah! And fall. Robbie and Reese have a special relationship.
oh, that's funny.
He had the most water in his waders.
He's quite the narrator when he fishes with you. Some of the videos you posted, giant tunaing with him.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, Reese, what are we doing? He's like, well, we're tight to a tuna right now, and
Typical young kid that likes to fish, like after getting chased by the turtle, filled his waders up. It's early spring, it's cold. We're all trying to leave, and he's still casting.
He was the last one out.
Stop it.
He was the last one out. We must have walked like 6 miles. And he was the last one taking casts. And even Robbie was like, all right, Reese, we got to go, which is not usually typical. Usually it's like...
Now, normally someone's calling the Coast Guard, being like, Rob, come in.
oh, that's too funny. Well, boys, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for driving up.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
A lot of laughs. We always learn something when you're here. It was nice to have you here both together, too. It was cool.
Cool to see this thing.
That thing is just unreal. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. So people can have these done, but it's one of those things where it's like, the logistics and getting the head to Florida, waiting for the thing to be assembled and put together. It's just, like I said, I don't think there's any other tuna head like that. It's just the logistics are, I had to drive that down myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then buy a freezer to store it. And it's not for everybody, but for, that 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 person who's like, I gotta have it. I don't care what it costs. Dacus bones.
Tell you what, if we get blessed to get another 1,000-pounder, I'll be driving it down to Florida.
You got to
He's
put you on a call with Dave, and Dave will coach you through. Like, here's how he would have cut this a little bit different. You know, he's always like, "Can we stump it here?" I'm looking at him. I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
that's not happening."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Just putting half a tuna up on the truck. It's still sweet, though. That thing is just incredible. I could stare at that thing all day.
All day.
That's
Every time I
awesome.
look at it, I see something a little bit different about
Yeah.
what's going on in there. It's really, really,
Yeah.
really cool.
So, info. You guys just want to rattle off your website stuff, charter stuff real quick? It's
Yeah,
going to be in
and
the
it's-
description, but
Yeah, it's Newport Sportfishing Charters, you know.
cool.
Give us a call if you want to hang out with me. Catch some fish.
Mine's
Hair tips. Fish and hair tips.
Gilded Crab B&B is the lodge. And then, Seth Funt, easy to find. You'll find me with this clown all summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least for giant tuna season.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, boys. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Again.
guys.
Always
We'll
a
end
pleasure,
this on
guys.
Yeah.
OG's 3 words of fishing wisdom. Remember, you can't catch them if you don't have a hook in the water. Always trust your instincts. And the last one, you got to keep listening. Stay tight, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in to the SeaBros Fishing Podcast. If you would like more information about today's guest, our episode, and show sponsors, or if you want to order hats and apparel, please visit our website at SeaBrosFishing.com. You can also stay up to date on all the latest SeaBros Fishing content and podcast episodes by following us on Instagram at SeaBros Fishing. Finally, to book a trip with us through our family-run charter fishing company, please visit massbayguides.com or see our latest updates and fishing reports by following Mass Bay Guides on Instagram and Facebook.